Right, so we're going to have a look at how you use iteration to solve equations and also how you can rearrange an equation to create an iterative formula. So if you can start off having a look at this first question, give it a go, and then when you're ready for me to go through it with you, hit play again. Right, so we're told this was our original equation. It has an iterative formula that is given here, and our starting value is x0, which is equal to -1. So it's important that we start off with that bit. So x0 equals -1. And we're going to be substituting that in place of where the x value is. And we're asked to find a solution to 3 decimal places. Now be aware, sometimes it can be you need to keep going until you find the solution. Sometimes they may ask you just to find the first 3 answers and you can stop at that point. So you do need to read the questions that you've been set very carefully. You also do need to consider if it's a real life or practical problem, talking, say, about people, then obviously at the end you would need to round it to the nearest integer because you can't have part of a person. So it's just being mindful of some of those things. Right then, to work out the answer to the first one, we're going to need to use the fraction button on your calculator. You're going to put -1 in the brackets, cubed, take away 1 over 4, and hit equals to see what you get, which comes out with -1/2 or -0.5. Okay, I don't need to do any rounding at this point, it's already rounded to 1 decimal place. Remember, for the next one, to make your life easier, you're going to use the arrow keys to go back to the bracket and use the answer button on your calculator. And you don't need to change anything else, everything else can stay exactly where it is, and hit equals. And you will then get -9/32. And remember, that isn't a decimal, so you use your S to D button to convert it, and you get 0.28125. And if you round that to 3 decimal places, -0.281. Okay, so -0.281 and -0.5 are not the same, so we're going to have to work out the next one. And remember, for this, you just need to now hit the equals button on your calculator. Okay, so just be careful, you only do it once at a time, and therefore you get -0.25556, etc. Round this one to your 3 decimal places, so -0.256. Okay, so this one's here is going to tell me that we need to round it up, and these two are not the same, so we're going to have to go again. So the fourth one, again, you can just carefully hit your equals button, and that will give you a solution of -0.25417. Round this one to 3 decimal places, -0.254. Okay, we still haven't got 2 answers that are the same, so we're going to go again for the 5th one. At this point, again, just hit your equals button, and you should get -0.25410, etc. Round this one to 3 decimal places, and we have -0.254, and these two are both the same. So we are done, and our solution at this point then to that equation, which remember is an estimate because it's not an exact solution, it's to 3 decimal places, is -0.254. Okay, so hopefully that's recapped how to use iteration. And now I want to show you some of the trickier questions. So this is a little bit of an extension challenge to make sure that you can perhaps rearrange an equation to give an iterative formula. Okay, so I want you to have a think about what is it you would need to do to the equation x cubed minus x minus 2 equals 0 to try and make it look like x equals the square root of 1 plus 2x. Give it a go, play around with it a little bit, see how far you can get, and then when you're ready for me to go through it with you, I'll show you how. Okay, so if we start off with our original equation, we have x cubed minus x minus 2 equals 0. And we want it to look like this one. Well, the first thing we've got to start off with, there's no x cubes left in it, so we're going to have to deal with that at some point. But there is a square root. Okay, so somehow we're going to have to get this down to x squared in a little while. But at first, we want to deal with the fact that in the final solution, there's no negative x and no -2. So my starting point, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So that will give me x cubed minus x equals 2. And I'm also going to get rid of the negative x. So I'm going to plus x to both sides. And at this point, I will end up with x cubed equals x plus 2. Okay. Now, as I said, there's no cubic or mention of cubic or cube root in this one at all. So we're going to have to deal with the fact that we need to get this x cubed down to an x squared so that we can square root it. So the only way to do that is to divide through by x. So x cubed divided by x will give me x squared. X divided by x gives me 1, which is now starting to look like what I had in the formula. And 2 divided by x can just be written as the fraction 2 over x. It's starting to look much similar now. And therefore, my last job is to make sure that I have an x on its own on the left-hand side. So I need to square root on both sides on this one to give me x equals the square root of 1 plus 2 over x. Okay, so there are often several ways of rearranging equations, and it's not necessarily the most sensible way, but it's about showing how you can get from one format to another and thinking through the things that you need to do that. Okay, I'm going to pop one more up for you so that you can have a look at. So if you want to have a go at this one and think about how you might get the answer to it, and then hit play when you're ready for me to go through it with you. Okay, so we start off with our equation. So I've got 2x cubed minus x minus 2 equals 0. And again, my starting point is to look at this one. I have no negative 2's and no negative x's. So there, I'm going to get rid of the negative things first. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. That will give me 2x cubed minus x equals 2. And then my next job is to deal with the fact that I've got negative x. So I'm going to add x to both sides. That will give me then 2x cubed equals x plus 2. Okay, now I've got no cube again and no 2 on the left-hand side. So I'm going to save the cube for the end and deal with the 2, because the 2 is going to hopefully make this side look a little bit more useful. And you'll see where I'm coming from with that in a second. So divide by 2 and you get x cubed equals x divided by 2. I can just write as x over 2. And 2 divided by 2 will give me just 1. So it's still not looking quite like this one. So again, this has got a square root in it. So I need to think about getting this into that squared format. So the only way to do that is to divide by x on both sides. So at this point, you end up with x squared equals, and this is x over 2 or a half x. A half x divided by x means the x's will cancel out, leaving you with just a half, which is now starting to look like what I want it to. And then my 1 divided by x gives me 1 over x. It now looks much more like what I want. And my last step is to make sure that I have an x on the left-hand side, so I would square root both sides, and that would give me x equals the square root of a half plus 1 over x. Okay, now some of these questions are very complicated, so it is just me showing you how to do this. There's the odd 1 or 2 questions in what I've set you to have a look at to make sure that you can try them, okay, but it is just a trial at this point, and please ask if there is anything you want any additional help with.